Hello and welcome to this Telecoms.com webinar produced in association with Actix. I'm James Middleton, Managing Editor of Telecoms.com. Churn, the operator's greatest bugbear, is not diminishing. In fact, research from Informa found that it's on the increase, and poor customer service has long been identified as a key reason for the end user to move on. There's no question that all stakeholders in the telecoms ecosystem have latched onto customer experience as a core element to focus on in order to combat churn. After all, who would admit to not wanting to improve the customer experience? But mobile operators need new approaches to close the gap between what their networks report and what their customers tell them. After all, when it comes to measuring the customer experience, monitoring network KPIs is a lot less abstract and somewhat easier to do than monitoring the actual customer experience itself. After all, dropped call rates are not the same as dropped calls. An operator can meet all of its KPIs and still find that customers are complaining. So the question is, does the output of the customer analysis process bring you any closer to representing the authentic end-user experience? In a moment, I'm going to be joined by Neil Coleman, who's Director of Global Marketing at Actix, and he's going to provide an overview of the new ways that operators can measure and improve their customers' experience. We'll also see how real-time geo-located customer measurements can be used to better focus network investment, improve outsourced governance, and power marketing campaigns. What we're looking at is why customer experience success depends on bridging the gap between the business and the network, the limitations of a network-centric approach to optimizing customer experience, real-time customer measurement, geolocation, and traffic management, and how to leverage this data across the business for deeper customer insight and improved customer loyalty and retention. There's also going to be some evidence from the field on customer experience improvements realized by operators to date. Of course, you know the saying, the customer is king. Well, a 2011 survey carried out by Informa looked at the top 10 main drivers for customer churn and found that rather than the desire for a shiny new device placed at the top of the list, the voice service quality, followed by network coverage and capacity, were the leaders. Customer care actually came in fourth, but it's fair to say that its importance should not be underestimated, given that the top 3 churn drivers would likely lead to some form of interaction between the user and the customer service system. If you think about it, a failure in quality coverage or capacity is going to result in a call to the customer services department. So changing market conditions and an evolving customer profile mean that loyalty is seen as the safest way of maintaining a solid customer base and revenues. Moreover, it's recognized that the lifetime value of a customer is such that an organization can generate more revenue from the customer by giving them a better experience. After all, who can afford to let their most valuable customers churn? The CEO of a major US operator recently commented that improvement in churn is the quickest, fastest, most significant way of improving your bottom line. Although operators are rightly focusing on growing average customer spend, winning the loyalty of customers and extending their stay on the network arguably plays a stronger role in maximizing customer profitability. But delighting the customer in a hyper-competitive marketplace is notoriously difficult and requires building a strategy that goes way beyond today's unsophisticated and embryonic loyalty programs. A company-wide strategy is needed to address churn, and an outstanding customer experience should be embedded in all aspects of operator strategy, from marketing and advertising to the network and smartphone portfolios. The importance of customer experience management to communication service providers was underlined in an Informa survey, with over 39% of service providers identifying customer experience management as the single most important area of focus for 2012, exceeding by some margin the importance of network deployments and developments such as LTE and fiber rollouts. While telcos are increasingly placing their customers' demands at the center of their strategies, fully executing their vision will be a challenging process. However, the external and internal drivers that are rapidly altering the telco business model may mean that carriers must make drastic changes to their customer management systems if they are to remain competitive. Telco customer service directors have identified that addressing the customer service model is a top priority, while CIOs have acknowledged that improving the customer experience is a primary area for investment. This demonstrates that telcos have recognized that their future lies with their existing customers. However, customer service expectations have been raised by their experiencing in other verticals, meaning that telcos will have to work very hard to engage, retain and satisfy their existing customers. And this is where I'm going to hand over to Neil to explain exactly how that is done. After his presentation, Neil's going to be available to take your questions. You can actually ask them at any time just by typing them into the text box on the main page of this webinar, and Neil will get around to answering them when he's finished speaking. Over to you, Neil.
Thanks, James. My name is Neil Coleman. I'm Director of Global Marketing at Actix. Actix is a software company focusing on mobile analytics and optimization, and we have about 230 operator customers worldwide. In this webinar, I'm going to present why operators need to put the customer at the heart of their network and investigate some practical approaches to do so. So quickly onto the agenda. We'll cover why it is important for operators to bridge the gap between the business and the network. We'll then go to look at what networks can tell you about your customers, specifically what they are doing, where they are, and what experience they're receiving. We'll then show how to leverage this unique insight that the network has across the business. We'll illustrate this with some examples from our customers. And then finally, onto some conclusions. So now onto the industry challenges. This is really stating the obvious, but it provides a valuable insight into the challenges around customer experience. The industry is caught between two trends. Firstly, saturated markets. Mobile phone penetration is above 100% in developed markets, and in combination with industry regulation, this is reducing customer loyalty and increasing customer acquisition costs. By some measures, it takes 6 times more to acquire a customer than to retain them. All of this is causing operators to shift focus from customer acquisition to customer retention, and as a result, customer experience is becoming the key operator battleground. This shift will be difficult in itself, except for another trend, the smartphone explosion. Let's not forget where the industry was in 2006. Until flat data pricing and, more importantly, groundbreaking smartphones were brought to market, operators were still trying to find uses for their 3G data networks. Now, as a result of the smartphone explosion, we're seeing operators facing huge challenges in managing the growth in network traffic and, perhaps more subtly, the changes in usage patterns, from customers being outdoors and mobiles to indoor and static. All of this is driving increased network cost and complexity. The bottom line is that operators can't afford to deliver high-quality customer experience to everyone. So the end point of these trends is that customer experience is now becoming harder to assure at the same time as it's becoming the most important thing for operators. So we've laid out the problem, so what are operators doing about it? Informa recently conducted a survey on operators' retention strategies. From the responses, we see the typical use of business levers to improve customer experience and retention. That is, longer contracts, handset upgrades, discounted tariffs and bundles. And depending on an operator's customer base, these will have varying degrees of success. Now let's look at the results when the same people were asked what they thought were the main factors important to churn. You can see the highest ranking factors are network coverage, voice service quality, data service quality, network capacity, and customer care. Hence the elephant in the room. Whilst the business pulls business levers to improve customer experience and loyalty, the biggest source of customer dissatisfaction, the network, is not in the mix. This was clear from a meeting we had at a Middle East Telecoms conference 2 months ago. The head of Telecoms regulation was conducting a tour of the conference floor. He asked what we did. Actix replied, "We help operators optimize and improve their networks." To which he responded, "You should talk to operator X because I keep getting dropped calls." This was the head of Telecoms regulation, and all he cared about was dropped calls. So we can see from the results of the Informa survey that networks are critical to customer experience. Working in this space for 15 years, Actix has seen how networks impact customers. At an obvious level, the network directly impacts quality of experience. So as we saw from the survey, coverage is a big factor in voluntary churn. You can extend this into billing. Operators can only bill for services they can deliver. All-you-can-eat data plans may have diluted the importance of this, but for one category of customers, roamers, the inability to provide network coverage means instant lost revenue. From direct experience, network and specifically RAN-related issues take a lot longer to resolve by customer service reps, again impacting customer dissatisfaction. And more subtly, only the network has visibility into the locations where customers actually are. Marketing and sales teams would benefit greatly by understanding the demand and customer experience in small geographic areas. This is only visible to the network. So if the network is so important, why do we see a gap between it and the business when it comes to customer experience? Well, firstly, networks are complex, highly technical, and need skilled staff to operate them. This typically means the network is run in isolation by large in-house or outsourced teams. This makes the network a black box, with the business unable to easily understand how it is impacting customer experience. It also makes it difficult for the business to use the customer experience data captured in the network to support sales and marketing activities. Operators lack systems that can join the network and the business sides together. In addition, up until recently, the network itself lacked insight into customer experience. A key challenge that operators face is that network performance isn't the same as customer experience. We've had many conversations with operators that go something like this. My managed service provider shows me that my network KPIs are the best in the country. So why am I ranked third in terms of customer satisfaction? What underpins this problem is that network KPIs deal in aggregate experience and not the experience of key customers. You can see in this picture that network KPIs for the sectors in this region show low drop calls for the area. However, you can see this masks a couple of critical problems. Firstly, a corporate headquarters is in an area of poor coverage, and that is showing an 8% drop call rate. You can also see that new iPhone 4S customers are experiencing a higher drop call rate than average. These customers who are experiencing the issues have an higher ARPU than the other subscribers, but their pain is being hidden by network stats that show only average customer experience. So what can be done? Well, the network should be able to answer the business's questions about customer experience. Operators need to move beyond network KPIs and start talking and thinking in terms of people, places and phones, the stuff that matters to customers and the business. For example, you need to be able to ask and answer questions like, what is the iPhone drop call rate inside key corporate headquarters? Where does poor data performance result in VIP churn? And what is the signal strength for roamers using data cards at airports? All questions about key drivers of customer retention and revenue. Luckily, modern networks have capabilities to capture real customer experience. Modern 3G and emerging LTE networks can collect call-by-call data. This data is sufficiently granular that it can be segmented out by customer group and handset. Whereas previously operators were limited to network KPIs, they now, with the right support systems, can capture customer experience directly from the network. With third-party software platforms, operators can go one step further by geolocating this data. This will give them all aspects of the customer experience: who, what, when, and where. This visibility can drive real customer insight. For example, show me how many unique subscribers are using my data services in this location. From this, you can ask real business relevant questions. For example, what is my network coverage like for my VIP customers at their corporate campuses? In this example here, you can see a red area showing a clear coverage problem at this customer. This is not an abstract dropped call rate KPI. This is a specific customer's experience at a key business location for them. This experience will drive real customer behavior and affect long-term business with this customer. This granular customer experience data can also tell you about how newly launched handsets are performing. It will provide information on where handsets are being used, is their performance below that of other handsets, and are the customers of these new handsets having more call issues than others? Is this impacting customer experience? With most operators now launching handsets quickly, effectively testing them live in the field, this type of information is invaluable. You can see by understanding customer experience, you can get a much greater insight into how the network is supporting the business. The real challenge is making these insights business relevant. The key point here is that there is not enough time and network budget to improve everyone's customer experience. Equally, sales and marketing campaigns around churn reduction or new service rollouts need to be laser focused. So Actix believes that you need to take real customer experience data and correlate it with business data. Business data such as churn records or customer complaints will allow you to see where customer experience is causing customers to complain and churn. You'll also be able to understand how important these customers are to you. By combining the real business data, you get improved focus and improved prioritization. However, you still need to take action. Actix believes if you can't action on customer experience data, then again the network will remain siloed. Taking action means having enough data and analytics to support sales and marketing, customer care, and engineering decision making. We'll illustrate this with some examples. Firstly, being able to ask where my international roamers congregate will allow marketing, engineering, and customer care to focus their attentions on these revenue-driving customers. In this example, our customer experience data shows that there are a high number of international roamers congregating at this hotel today. With this knowledge, marketing can run specific targeted campaigns at these areas in the future. Customer care can prioritize customer complaints at these locations. And engineering can make network changes to capture more roaming revenue through improved coverage in the future. This is direct action as a result of customer and business intelligence. By understanding the business impact of network coverage, operators can take targeted actions to improve customer retention. In this example, we are showing 3G network coverage for an area. You can see, like all networks, there's a mix of good, green, and bad, red coverage. The key question is, are the areas of poor coverage causing complaints and churn? Now, when you correlate with business data, you can see there's one small area at the top right where coverage is directly impacting customer retention. Knowing this, engineering can improve network coverage in this region, and maybe marketing can send out femtocells or prioritize indoor coverage to these specific locations. Note that instead of focusing on a whole region in this map, the operator is able to focus on one 500-meter square area. So onto the service demand side. Knowing which services are being used will allow better targeting of marketing and engineering spend. For example, in this view, we're asking how much data is being consumed by prepaid subscribers at bus stops during peak business hours. At the bottom left, you can see a bus terminal. There's a large red hotspot. Is this a revenue opportunity? Should we roll out new network technologies here? Or should we run promotions that either increase or suppress demand to maintain network capacity? Without business and customer experience insight, such questions will be very difficult to answer. At an engineering and operations level, eventually we'll need to fix areas with poor customer experience. By combining customer experience data with traditional engineering data sources, operators can immediately focus on problem areas and use all available data to address the problems. In this case, we're trying to resolve an IRAT, 3G to 2G handover issue that is impacting customers at a specific location. This is really about prioritizing and fixing problems that have an impact on the customers that you care about. To deliver this insight and actionability, operators need customer experience analytics solutions. These solutions combine core-by-core customer experience data from the network with business data to drive both visualization and action. In this high-level architecture, you can see how a customer experience analytics solution collects both core-by-core data and business data. It segments this data by customer and handset group, and then it generates KPIs for these segments. Finally, it geolocates this data to provide the people, places, and phones dimension. These analytics will drive views that highlight hotspots, indoor performance, roaming locations, corporate performance, along with many of the segmented views you saw earlier. Using the same data, you can then start to take action to fix coverage problems, roll out new network capacity, and provide data to target marketing campaigns. To be effective, all of these capabilities need to exist inside of one solution. So let's have a look at the benefits we've seen from operators deploying such solutions. In terms of operations and customer care, as an Asian operator, we've seen an 80% reduction in the time to address customer complaints. They achieve this by providing technical customer care a single view of the network and its impact on customer experience. This allowed problems to be identified and the network's impact quickly assessed. In terms of engineering, a Japanese operator used customer experience analytics to understand how the network was coping at train stations. They were able to identify how the network was handling the bursty demand as trains pulled into the station, and as a result made several changes to improve network capacity. Finally, in terms of marketing, we're working closely with a customer who's targeting their churn reduction campaigns by seeing where network performance is directly impacting churn. In summary, customer experience analytics helps operators improve customer experience, become more effective at churn reduction, get better returns on network capacity by understanding where the demand is, improve engineering effectiveness, and get better control of outsourcers and managed service providers through an unambiguous view of the network's impact on customer experience. Thank you for listening. I hope you've seen how important it is to customer experience for operators to bridge the gap between the network and the business. We've seen the origins of this gap and the impact that it has on operators. We've also seen that by deploying customer experience analytics solutions, operators can get real insight into people, places, and locations and take actions as a result. I will be online to answer the questions after this webinar. Thank you.
Thanks, Neil, for your insights there. As I mentioned before, Neil will now be available to take your questions. You can just type them into the text box on the page of this webinar, and Neil will get around to reading those and posting his responses in real time. Thank you all very much for joining us on Telecoms.com today.